I was a farmer's son. I was born at Wigginton Cottage, which was the last farm on the right-hand side before you get to the ring road. Also had two farms, another farm which was near Moorlands, you know Moorlands, near Brown's Nursery is. That was all my land. I sold the farm to Stevenson's auctioneer.
I did that in a spur house.
That was my farm.
Was it?
Adjacent to Brown's. At the moment they're extending the house, doubling the size of it, bringing it.
Right.
Now then, that's where I was.
I know.
In 1940,
yes.
I took over there. I bought it in 1939.
Yeah.
And I took over in 1940. Well, war had been declared in September 39. Well, about the middle of 1940, 3 army lorries or Air Force lorries pulled up at the farm one day with about 20 men, workmen on. Also a foreman who was called Bean, a farmer's son from Cotmanthorpe, who I knew. So he came across to me, he pulled up at my farm, he knew where I was, and told me what was going to happen.
Right.
So he said, we're going to build an emergency landing ground here for Linton, behind you. Your land, but land immediately adjacent and just past me. So I said, oh. So he said, there'll be about 100 acres, and he said, we'll be about 3 weeks here, and our purpose is to fell all the trees on the perimeter and on the centre of it, fell all the hedges, fill all the ditches in, make it a level landing ground. He said, we've seen Mr. Bell, the owner, we're just commandeering the right to build an emergency landing ground for Linton.
Yes.
He can still put his sheep on, make hay, and he's accepted that towards on. So I said, oh. So I said, how will it affect me then? So he said, well, only that we're going to fell all the trees on the perimeter, and some may be yours, you see. So I said, oh, so be it, you see. So they did that. They worked for 3 weeks and they levelled it completely. And it was they made about 8 fields into one for a landing ground. And it was finally finished. Yeah. But and so off they went. But they left a sort of a minor disaster for me. I had a pond right down at the bottom, joining the emergency landing ground. I had a pond, and this pond automatically filled from the Rivered Kyle drainage board beck, and when the beck came up it overflowed into my pond, and so there was all this water for cows to drink. Yeah, in the pond, you see. Well, if they didn't fell a tree right across where the water came in, you see, and that meant no water could possibly get in or didn't come in. And suddenly I realised the pond was dry. Within a month or 2 months, and there was no water for my cows to drink. I had 22 cows, you see, in that 17-acre field, and they went down to this pond and drunk, and no problem. So I had to change quickly and take them to another fields, and also put water tanks in the farmyard so they could drink. And so I'd got friendly with an Air Force officer at the time in Betty's Bar in York, a squadron leader he was, but he was ground staff. And I told him this, you see. Oh, he said, you can make a claim from the RAF for that. He said, how many gallons of milk a day do you think you're losing then, Tony, through your cows not being able to drink? So I said, oh, 20 gallons a day. He says, you can make a claim in for 20 gallons a day for how many days it was, and I'll see you get paid. And so I didn't do it, and I got a cheque back for 35 quid. So anyway, that's the only other thing I can tell you. I can tell you exactly where it is. Now, if you imagine you drive... Well, oh yeah, that's it. You go straight past Spur House and down to Jacobean and farm on the left.
Yes.
You go just past there, 50 yards past there, and if you turn in, that's it, the whole expanse in front of you that was the emergency landing ground for Linton. No,
on the opposite side of the lane.
Yeah, it's on the left.
Yes,
on the left.
Yeah.
It's on the left. Before you get the end of it, the end of the landing ground would about come up to Albert Hall's land.
Would it?
Yeah. You would think they would have a practice landing, you see. And so anyway, I was always watching, you see, after when it was finished, you see, to see if they'd have a practice landing. Anyway, I never saw one. But anyway, one of my farm lads said one day, some old... Handy Page, Whitleys or whatever, swooped very low down and They didn't touch down, they just stopped to about maybe 50 feet or what, and swooped down, went away, and then had another go, and that's all they ever done. But to cut a long story short, to the best of my knowledge, it was never used. No. The mystery was that Germany didn't bomb Linton Aerodrome and Eastmoor Aerodrome and put them out of existence. No. They could have sent 40 bombers to Linton and obliterated it.
They did bomb Linton.
Down to actually, right. Maybe one runway. But if they sent 40 bombers, they could have obliterated it. The same with Eastmoor, and saved our 1,000 bombers a night going, which you know they did do to Germany. So they didn't do so, I don't know. Yeah. And so my other wartime experience, when I was a lad, although I farmed Spur House, Wigginton, I was unmarried at the time, and so I still lived at Wigginton Cottage, unmarried. So I'd been to the Bumper Castle one night and come back, and I was talking to two lads on the roadside, in front on the roadside at Wigginton Cottage. Well, during the war, what do they call them? Reconnaissance Lysanders were on York Aerodrome. Yeah. You'll have heard of them. There was at least a dozen Lysanders, and every night they went out on a reconnaissance patrol over the North Sea. Every night, six or seven nights a week, and they were looking for a possible invasion, you see. That's what they were afraid of. At that time, we were expecting Jerry to invade, so that's what they were looking for. But also, they were looking for any submarines that might have been taking air, or Bismarck or Scharnhorst sailing down North Sea to give information.
That's right.
And they did that the whole time. Well, this particular night, me and two pals were standing. It was about 11:15. And in those days it would be what they called, double summertime, wouldn't it? And it was dusk, and we were just standing talking, and we were watching the Lysanders coming in to land. They used to go out about, maybe 8:30 at night, and they'd come back about 11:15. And there was at least a dozen of them, maybe 14. And they just used to switch their engine off over New Earswick and float down and land, you see. And we were watching one after another. Suddenly, one of my pals says, "That's not one of ours." And I listened, and I could hear an engine, a powerful engine. And this engine, this plane, he came diving towards us from New Earswick and gave us 2 blasts with his machine gun. Blasts. Now, there was 2 of us standing there. There were bullets hit the road there, and bullet marks are still in the garage wall where they hit the garage wall.
That's
and they gave us 2 blasts and then steered away and went. Now, what we couldn't understand, why he didn't do the same to Lysander aircraft on Clifton Airfield. And the only explanation was that if he had done, he would have set up maybe our fighters to come and get him, you see. That's the only possible explanation. Maybe just got among them, you see. Got among them. It was just an odd one, and that's all he did. There may have been 6 land, there were another 6 to come, and he just came in behind them. They always used to switch their engine up and float down and land. They did about 70 miles an hour. And the York Blitz was the most thing that I can remember anything, you see, because I was living at Wigginton Cottage then, you see.
That's right,
and
yes.
And with one bomb, not dropped on our land, but dropped in a field behind us, an accidental drop. But I've always wondered how many bombers, I've read dozens of books, and nobody knows exactly how many bombers it was that attacked York.
No.
Varies from 30, 35, 40, 45. I would think maybe about 35. Now, this is a strange thing. They dived down over Wigginton Cottage and over the Bumper Castle to hit the railway line, you see, at the cross, and then on to the station. Except one, well, maybe more than one, but there's a German pilot came to York on holiday a few years ago, and he got friendly with a York family. And they asked him, this was in the press, you see, they asked him what he remembered most about it, you see. And so he said, well, the thing I can remember most about it, he said, I was told to bomb the gas works, the gas holders, you see. Yeah. And he says, I must have been a bad aimer because they're still standing. And so then I wondered exactly. I was in Farlington pub one night, and I always wondered where they started the bombing run. Because the first bomber, he came down to about 1,000 feet or just over Wheaton Cottage and Bumper Castle and lit fairy lights to light York up. Now, I often wondered, and then all the others followed him, you see, at about 3 or 4 minutes interval.
Yeah.
And we, first of all, we had an Anderson table shelter. We were underneath it. And then my father got tired of that after about 3/4 of an hour. He said, we're going in cupboard under stairs. Because we could hear every bomb dropped, you see. So then I got tired of that and I said, well, I'm going outside to have a look. Even mother, no, don't, you see. Because every 3 minutes I kept boom, 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 like that, you see. 2 ton of bombs on you. So I wondered exactly where they were coming from, where they started the bombing run, just for interest, you see.
Yes.
And so one night I was in Fallin pub, and I was just telling them that, that I was underneath the bombing run, but I never knew where they started the bombing run. So a fella piped up, he says, I can tell you, Tony, an old fella. And so I said, where? He says, Wenby. So I said to him, how do you know it was Wenby? Because he says, I was there. I was underneath it, and I went out to the house and I saw them assembling, one after another. And that's where, and he said, I saw them swoop down and bomb you. I saw it, everything.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Yes.
and so I said, well, they wouldn't all be there at the same time. Oh no, he said, 3 or 4 to start maybe, and then one went, and then another would arrive to take its place, and then one went, and another would arrive, you see, until all they... So I said, how many do you think then? So he said, oh, maybe 30, 35, that's what he said.
Oh,
and
right.
That was the official figures. Anyway, next morning after the bomb in York, I had to take milk into York to Cork Dairy. And I had to drive round York and saw all the damage it was done. And I'll never forget going to the railway station.
Yes.
And the railway station was completely demolished. Nothing, just smoke coming up from there. And within a few days they had lines relaid.
Up and running.
Yeah, lines relayed. Yeah. You'd wonder who went to do it, because you see they were all called up.
That's right, yeah.
And then of course my problem was then my calling up papers, because I was military age. And my father always warned me, keep out of infantry, because my father had been in the First World War into Army Service Corps, and his job was, he told me, an ordinary private in West Yorkshire or whatever got 2 bob a day. That was
Right.
14 bob a week in the keep. Well, he said, I saw this advert in York Press, and it was offering 6 bob a day, 42 shillings a week, which was a fortune.
Good
because
money.
he said, I was only making 10 bob a week in my keep. So him and a friend, they had to have a licence to drive a lorry. I don't know if it was a 3-ton lorry, 4-ton lorry, whatever you say. So he said, next morning, me and Alf, we went to Fulford Barracks and we enlisted straight away to do that, you see, because he said, I was always a bit scared of infantry, and he said, I would have fancied Navy, really. By then, my father was 23, and he still hadn't been called up. Well, it was beginning at war. It was beginning, you see. So, it was 1914. So, he was driving an army lorry loaded with ammunition from Calais to the front line the whole war.
Was he?
Yeah. And his pal Alf, another one. And they were doing that for 6 days a week. And because Germans knew they were doing it, you see, and they were firing artillery over their own troops and over our troops to drop on roads where they were. And at that time, my father said you had to drive into the field as far as you could get, and then get in edge bottom, you see, in a good...
I see, out of the way.
And my father would never eat anymore. He had to live on New Zealand red cheddar cheese,
Yes.
cream crackers, bully beef, and rice pudding. Nothing else. That's all they had.
Yeah.
For 6 days.
No
until they
variation.
went back to a camp wherever they happened to me. They could stop at a camp and get a bath or a wash and get food and change. And so my father always says keep out the infantry.
Yeah.
So because I was not terrified, but was because all my pals were getting called up, you see,
Yes.
in 1940. We were 19, and so I got calling up papers to say you were about to be called up. you're eligible because of your age, which preference would you have, you see? Army, RAF. Your only choice is Army, RAF or Navy, you see. And so, of course, he did my father's work. I couldn't very well say Army, so I put RAF down, you see, because all my pals had gone into RAF.
All right.
And so I put so in due course. Of course, about 3 weeks after, I got me calling up papers.
Did you?
At 19. And I'd got to Spur House there, in charge of Spur House,
Right.
farming, you see. So I had to go to a big house for a medical next to the Bar Convent School. You know where the Bar Convent is?
Yes.
The big house next door.
Yeah.
Past medical, okay, you see. Although some fellas, some of my two friends, one had, well, they both had flat feet.
Did they?
Yeah. Now one was failed for the army for flat feet, and the other one wasn't. He was taken. So
I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway, that's another matter.
No.
So I passed.
Strange,
so
isn't
I had to go in front of a panel of three: an army colonel, a group captain Air Force, and a captain in the Navy. You see, for interview. So he said, "Oh, I said the colonel. He was first one. I see, Mr. Linfoot, you've nominated the RAF. Why do you wish to go in the RAF, you see?" So I said, "Well, all my friends have gone in the RAF." So he said, "Well, also, Mr. Linfoot, I see that you're a farmer. You're registered as a farmer. Where are you a farmer, you see?" So of course I told him, and I told, well, I didn't add in on to it, I was telling him the truth. I said, we have 2 farms. Me and my father run 2 farms. And he wanted to know what crops he grew, what cattle he had, sheep, people. And I told him, he said, "Oh, Mr. Linfoot, you go back to your farm. We need all the food you can produce.
Yes.
And we'll send for you when we need you."
Right.
And that was it. And that was it. And so I don't think there's any more I can tell you about the Air Force. Oh, because I used to see old aircraft going out from Linton and Falthorpe and Dishfeth and all where every night, right from the old Whitleys,
Oh yes.
Blenheims,
Yeah.
Wellingtons.
The first bombers.
Yeah, and there was another breed as well. I can't forgotten what the other was besides Whitleys, Wellingtons. Could have been Sterling.
Yeah.
And, yes, and I believe there was another one. But the Whitleys were the first, you see.
That's
They
right,
used to trundle across from Linton and across towards coast. And when they were loaded up with bombs, I believe there's various amounts of bombs they said they could carry, but I think generally it's about 2 ton, isn't it, a bomb? And they were only doing 70 mile an hour. They were hardly moving in the sky when they were loading up.
Yeah.
Came back a bit later. The 1,000 bomber raids were amazing, weren't they?
They were.
What used to amaze me at the time, how we could stand the losses, because there was 2 or 3 nights, there was over 100 failed to return.
Yes.
Then I found out eventually, you know what our stock was of aircraft here? Of Halifaxes and Lancasters and all those? What stock we had total?
No.
We had 6,000 stock
Was
total of Halifaxes and Lancasters.
Yes.
And then of course there was the American Liberator War. They boosted it a lot.
That's right.
But the amazing thing, we had builders who could, whenever there was a bad night, well, say we lost 100 a week. They could rebuild 100 a week to keep the stock going.
I see.
And most of them were rebuilt in Lancashire.
Right.
In I don't know which, Bolton and Bury, towns like that, where they were mainly rebuilt, and then of course there'd be Rolls-Royce engines, which were Derby, weren't they, Rolls-Royce? But we could replace what we lost, which amazed me how we could do
York was also a repair depot.
Oh, it's just repairs.
Just repairs.
My wife worked there. She worked there, well, not until she married me, just before the end of the war. The whole 41, 42, 43 and 44, 4 years she worked there. Just repairing, generally, Halifax.
Yeah.
French, wasn't it?
That was, Ellington was, yes.
Well, because I know where the aerodrome, an extra aerodrome was built for Elvington that was never used. I don't know, it's strictly, but because it started at Elvington, and then how I know, I was a member of Fulford Golf Club.
Right.
And right at the far end of Fulford Golf Club, there was sort of a swamp, and then beyond that runway was built from Elvington to, would it be Weldrick? And to the best of my knowledge, it was never used.
Right.
It was never. It cost millions.
Yes.
Sir Lindsay Parkinson's lorries, about 40 lorries were carting base rubble for making it, you see, for months and months and months.
Right.
And the purpose of it was, you see, it was a 1 mile long runway.
Runway, yes.
An extra long runway for flying fortresses. They expected flying fortresses, Americans, needed a longer runway than what. But I know that it was intended that if war went on, that more Americans would come, and it had to be for flying fortresses. They needed a mile-long runway,
yes,
whereas the planes that French flew didn't need a mile-long runway.
No, no.
Because I used to come to Stillington as a schoolboy.
Did you really?
I used to.
Yeah.
This was in the 30s,
yes,
before you were born. He used to say, "Garrett Cow, we'll go to Stillington tonight."
Aye.
And he said, "I want to see 4 farmers to see if they have anything to sell." My father wanted to buy either a new calf cow, a new cow heifer, or pigs,
yes,
or whatever. And he says, "We'll call it Willie Ellis's." That was Mervyn Ellis,
Mervyn's
father.
dad, yes.
Knew him. And then he says, "We'll call it George Vestey's."
Yes.
That was Steve Vestey's grandfather.
Yes.
And then he says, "We'll call and see Arthur Allenby at Bransby."
All right.
You've heard of him.
Yes, yes.
So anyway, we called it, I remember very well this night.
Going round the world.
Yeah, when we called it Willie Ellis, and Willie Ellis said, "No, I haven't one at the moment, but I'll have one in about 3 weeks." So then we went to George Vestey's and didn't buy anything there, so he said, "We'll go to Arthur Allenby now." So we sailed up the road to Arthur Allenby, knocked on the door. Mrs. Allenby came to the door. "No, he isn't in, you see." Sunday night, I believe it was.
Oh, yes.
So my father says, "Could you tell me where he is then?" She says, "He's a dog at Stillington."
Oh.
So back we come to dog at Stillington. And
yes.
I go in with my father and have a grapefruit in passage, and there's Arthur Allenby telling him all tale in bar.
I see.
And of course, cut a long story short, there and then Arthur Allenby sold my father a litter of pigs, 8 little pigs for about £1.25 a piece.
Did he?
We always bought them from him.
Yes.
Somehow or other he always had to, it was a bit of a deal, you see.
Right.
He would have bought them somewhere at £1 a piece, you see.
Yes.
And,
I see.
and we always had pigs because our milk always went to Co-op Dairy, and I've told one of them to in villages, send 60 gallons of milk a day.
Right.
And then I used to take it when I was old enough, and I'd bring 60 gallons of separated milk, and all the cream taken out of it, you see, like what they're selling now.
That's right, yes.
1 penny a gallon.
Was it really?
1 penny a gallon. So
yes.
I brought 60 gallon back for 60 pounds, 6 churns of milk full of it every day.
What did you use that for pigs? Yeah.
Pigs, oh, they were no good for calves.
No.
But pigs, you would have thought it wouldn't have had it. Well, their pigs absolutely loved it.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you put some meal in trough as well. you
That's
see.
right, yeah.
And they got fat very quickly. A penny a gallon. Unbelievable, isn't it, what it is.
Oh, dear.
I believe my milk bill, I believe it's on there, I believe it's got to about 70 pence a pint.
Yeah, that's
Cheap,
right.
Cheaper
Yeah.
at supermarkets.
Well, it is,
But,
but...
I like a local delivery. I like delivery.
Yeah.
Penny a gallon.
That's right.
Look, in the afternoon we got there at 2:45. At 3 o'clock there's a girl came to end the corridor. "Mr. Linfoot," read on the minute. Now, what we found out, there were 6 audio specialists dealing with people.
Right.
6.
Was there?
Yeah, and they were all,
That's a lot, isn't it?
and so the people, he went in quickly, you see.
Yeah, big turnover.
Yeah, so I was in just over half an hour. And that one, it packed up after a month. So,
did it?
So I was annoyed about that, not to use the other one only. I thought, they're made by Siemens.
Are they?
German firm.
Good firm.
I thought, bugger it, bloody thing.
Yes,
Anyway,
they do.
Jeremy, my nephew next door, said, I can't walk from parks and round up 3 floors on hospital and along 3 different corridors and looking for it and searching for it. And he said, "I'll take it," he said.
Yeah.
So he took it back and said, "Yeah, we'll do with it." And within 2 days it came back by post.
Yes.
And it said, "No faults discovered, but it has been repiped." And evidently those, they call them pipes, you see.
Right.
And it maybe a pipe that was a bad fitting.
Yes,
and they'd repipe it.
squashed or something.
Perfect now. Perfect. And I've reached stage, you see, when I couldn't hear anything on television, but with that I can hear every word. I hear every word. But there is a snag with them. I thought, oh, this will be damned for when I go in the club. But if I come to quiz wearing this tonight, it would be purgatory, because it picks up all the other back, and it would be terrible, you see, terrible.
Yeah.
Even when I go in just to have a pint with Dennis, if there's anybody sat around in nearby tables, it picks up all their talking. You can't. That's the only snag with it. You're on television, and that's George Alighier, the newsreader.
Right.
And if you think he's a very clear speaker.
He is indeed.
Very good. He's easily the best.
Yes.
Couldn't hear anybody else at all.
No, but
George Alighier.
Yes, yeah. Because apparently you only lose
soil from the land, you see, when I worked on the land as a tractor driver.
Yes.
I was driving ploughs and the sand and dust used to eat a lot.
Yeah.
Well, there's all these bloody trees planted here. I could see Paisley Bridge. I still, if I manoeuvre, I can still see the American men with mills. I can see that lit up at night.
Yes.
But I could see Paisley Bridge on a beautiful
Yes.
sunny day.
Yeah.
And going out to Paisley Bridge, there's a hill up to Grattington.
Yes.
I don't know. I could see buses come down on a sunny day, and the sun would shine on their windscreen and reflect back here.
Yes.
As far as that.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'll never forget driving around York next morning to see all damaged bombs.
No.
All bomb damage. And I knew, I think that was his job, this pilot, you see, who used to come to York. I'm going back now 8 to 9
Yes.
years. He was an elderly fellow then.
Yes.
He'd made friends with somebody in York.
That's right.
And I believe he stayed with them, you see.
Yeah.
And so they said, a press interviewed him, you see, and said, what were you deputed to do, you see? What were you aiming at, you see?
Right.
They thought he'd say station, you see, or something like that. No, he said the gas holders, the two gas holders. I was supposed to do the two gas holders, to bomb them. But he said I must have been a poor aimer because they're still standing. Well, I say he was pilot, I don't know whether he was pilot, he might have been bomb aimer. I don't know too. I think he was pilot. Because I would like to have just asked him exactly to know how many there were actually on the bomb.
Yes.
Nobody. RAF, well, what was it? The name, what it was, what they did. Well, they were not fire watchers, but watching for German bombers.
That's right, there were, yes.
Bomb shots. There were tragedies to me was in the bombing of York. They bombed the exhibition building.
Yes.
Now, do you know where they were? Where the art gallery is?
Yeah.
Well, immediately behind there was a wonderful, the York Regatta dance, had a dance there every year.
Oh, yes.
It was a wonderful building. The balconies all round it, you see, upstairs, and it was all wood, you see. Now, they didn't bomb it with bombs. A bloody firebomb dropped on it, and it was burnt. Why, it was a wonderful building. All boxing matches used to be held. And I know there was a York boxer called Frank Fowler, and he was a light heavyweight, and he was champion of Great Britain, Frank Fowler, and well, now I know him, you see, my father was friendly with his trainer, Lons Webster, and every morning he trained at Wigan Cottage. He used to jog out of York, 3 mile, and come down to our farm and used to go in the shed, and he used to rig a ring up, a boxing ring, and then spar for 2 or 3 rounds. Then he would go twice round fields, and back again, twice round fields again, and then back to York. And he'd be back in York at 9 o'clock. Now that was Frank Fowler. Now he earned the right to fight for a world light heavyweight championship, but he had to fight an eliminator against young Striblin, who was a coloured American. And the fight was at the exhibition building. And so I was only 10-year-old. But I knew Frank Fowler because he used to come train.
To the farm.
He used to train. So because of that, my father got a ringside ticket, you see, allowing him to train there, and my father went to the fight. And because he got this ringside ticket, he was sat next to the eye man, the eye doctor.
Yes.
No, I don't know. You don't hear of fights being stopped because of eye damage.
No,
You
no.
used to, didn't
But
you?
they did indeed.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then the doctor would say, that's
it.
But
Yeah.
they must have something to protect him.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dr. Peter MacDonald was the eye man, and I sat with him all the time. Now, Frank Fowler and young Strublin, they weren't knockout men, either of them.
No.
They fought Marquis of Streensbury as a straight left and scoring point in those days,
Yes.
both of them.
Yeah.
And because Frank Fowler didn't win, the American won, because my father said the American just had an inch longer reach,
Right.
you see, and it just made the difference, and he just got more
Yeah.
points, scored more points with a straight left. Now they were at, I'll never forget that Frank
Yeah.
Fowler, Longs Webster with his
Trainer, yeah.
my father went, and it was in the exhibition building
Yeah.
at the back of the art gallery where it was, I can remember.
Yes.
And in Sandry, that's what
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
would burn like, it was all wood, the
That's
whole
right.
building.
The dry wood inside.
Yeah,
Just,
but it was a wonderful
Yeah.
building. You know, as a young 17, 18-year-old lad, I used to love to go to regatta dances there.
Oh, yes.
Wonderful,
Yes.
wonderful regatta dances.
Yeah. Oh, well.
And I don't think there are any dances as such in York now. I don't think.
They-
As a young fella, I used to go to the assembly rooms. You know,
Yeah,
I used to go to the Drapers' Ball, the
Yeah.
Butchers' Ball, the Cricketers' Ball, a Hunt Ball. I used
Yes,
to go to all
yeah.
balls then, lad.
Did you? Well done.
They were marvellous.
You know all the young ladies then, eh?
I once danced with a young lady, and I should have had dates with her, who was a bluebell dancer.
Was she really?
You've heard of the
Yes.
bluebell dance?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they
Yeah.
call this girl Heather Sutton.
Right.
Heather Sutton, and she lived on Irwin Avenue. You know Irwin
I
Avenue?
know Irwin Avenue,
I
yeah.
was trying to think what well, because her father's was Ted Sutton. He was a writer in the York Press. He wrote all the racing.
Right.
Remember Ted Sutton?
I don't know.
Was a bluebell dancer.
Was
you see.
she?
Well, you just imagine me as a
No.
young lad in the assembly rooms
You are.
dancing with
Yes.
a bluebell dancer.
Yes. Eh?
No better days.
You'd have thought all your birthdays had come at once that night. Eh? Good Lord.
And then eventually, of course, she married, she came to live at Stillington.
She never did, she?
She married